Howdy, all. I hope everyone out there had a happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, and lots of presents on Boxing Day for our Canadian viewers. And yeah, somebody was given a gift yesterday. Apparently, the New England Patriots can't decide what to do with a winning coin flip. Can you please explain to me what happened on the coin flip?
I mean, nobody could explain it. My feeling is that he's so pompous that he felt like, well, we're going to hold the Jets to a field goal anyhow, so let them get it first. They'll get a field goal, and then Brady will go down the field and get a touchdown and win, and I'll be a genius. And it didn't work out that way. And I think even Fitzpatrick sensed that, and that's why he went deep.
Yeah,
and he was going deep a lot in that game late anyhow. But he really went for the jugular, which isn't normally like the Jets or Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
but I think they felt like they were given a gift.
He doesn't have the arm to go deep. No. But the funny thing was, he went deep to that same receiver. I don't remember his name, 81, and he just missed it late and right. Yeah, he just missed him. It was on his fingertips, and then he goes basically the same route in overtime and gets him
right there.
And it was right there. Yeah. So. No, I didn't watch a lot of the game.
Here's the other thing. I did write an article about it. It's on Sportsology if people want to check it out. Belichick was fidgety on the sidelines the whole game. Like this, there was a point where he looked and he was like looking behind him in a panic. I don't know if you saw that when the camera caught him. It was almost like his dog ran away and he's trying to figure out where it was. And you never see him. And this is way before the overtime. This is either in the middle of the third quarter or the middle of the fourth. And so something was really bothering him that whole game.
Maybe he's worried the Jets were videoing him. But no, and I didn't watch a lot of the game, but I had heard that New England didn't play like everybody, that they didn't play all their starters.
No, I mean, Blount was out, and there were some other guys out. But again, like every team has injuries, right? I mean,
it will just be interesting, Russ. It's set up perfectly, and apparently, I don't know if the decision has been made yet, but I heard last night that NBC was thinking about putting the Jets and the Bills.
But they didn't.
Oh, they didn't? They kept it.
They flexed a different game.
Ah, okay, because there was speculation that they were going to flex the Jets and the Bills.
Now, while I'm covering the Winter Classic, I'm going to have like my phone showing the Jet game at the same time. But here, I'm going to give you a little peekaboo into the Rex Ryan week and how it will go, because I know Rex Ryan enough. It'll be like, well, we had a little bit of a disappointing season here, but we could end up 500, and I love the Jets, and I love Woody, and those guys are great. I love Darrelle Revis. I love the New York media, and he's just going to be a total love fest until Sunday.
And what he's saying underneath his breath, I'd love to beat those sons of bitches. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. I mean, no, and I'm telling you right now, I mean, I don't know whether I would want to face a team like if I would have rather had things flipped around and had played New England next week, when they probably would have sat everybody, including Gronk and Brady, and play. I mean, the Bills have nothing to play for other than pride, and Rex will whip them up into a lather, which will probably be to the Jets' advantage, because
there'll be penalties, right?
20 penalties. But it'll also mean that IK and Impali will probably go at Ryan Fitzpatrick's knees. So you better watch out.
I suspect he'll go after a Jet in the coin toss. That's my feeling.
I'm not sure if he'll be the team captain, but anyway. I have to include this as well. I did succumb to pressure,
world pressure.
Yes, and saw Star Wars on the 24th, on Christmas Eve.
Did you see it in 3D or IMAX or?
I saw it in 3D, and ironically, the 3D glasses that they gave me fit perfectly over mine. So I looked like a nerd with double glasses, but it worked. And
the 3D now, or at least the 3D they used, was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, there was the one where the Star Destroyer was coming at you, and it literally looked like it was 2 inches away from your head. So, and I didn't sit right up against the screen. I sat like
I was far back, and it felt that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say that it was, like I told you, I rated it a 9 out of 10. It was really well done. I have heard some criticism that basically it's the same story as the first one.
I mean, I would say it's 85% the same.
Yeah.
But we did learn a few more things, even though it was the same. So even though you can call it a reboot, generally in a reboot, you don't learn anything, right? Like how many times have we seen the same Superman Jor-El scene when they're leaving the planet? Like you don't learn anything anymore from that scene. But I felt like we learned something from this one, and I'm not going to give away why, from the other one. But I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's slightly different. I mean,
no, but what about reveals? I think there were a few more reveals.
I think they had to set up the next two movies by revealing something. If they just went strictly reboot, then I think people would have not, glommed onto this one with as much enthusiasm as people have. I mean, I think it's made $1 billion already. It's already.
Yeah. And can we put one thing to rest too?
Yeah.
No offense, Star Trek people, you're not in the same galaxy as Star Wars. You never were. You never will be.
Oh, don't give me because I'm a Star Trek person.
Has Star Trek made $1 billion on a movie?
No.
The answer is no.
No, but it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No.
Star Wars is so far and ahead of Star Trek, it's not even fun.
Star Trek was first. Star Trek was better.
Wow, so they were first.
No, I'm sorry. I like Star Wars. I love Star Trek. I love the original Star Trek. I'm not, that's the thing. It's like Star Trek was on TV. It was originated and then it was reproduced, Deep Space Nine and all the different incarnations. And I didn't watch those shows. I watched the original series. I didn't even watch the Next Generation, regularly. I liked the movies of the Next Generation better than the series. The series was just too much. I was an original Star Trek, Kirk and Spock and those guys. And that was the only thing that was
better in your mind.
What's that?
So who's better, Star Wars or Star Trek? One of them has to be better in your mind.
In my mind, you talking about the movies, or are you talking about the series?
No, just all of it.
Star Trek is more is my favorite. So I mean, it's personal. It's personal preference. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I remember seeing The Empire Strikes Back as a kid. I remember seeing. I don't think I saw the original Star Wars in the theater, but I saw the Empire Strikes Back in the theater and Return of the Jedi. But I honestly, there are low points to both of them. I mean, I'm sorry, the fourth, fifth, and sixth movies of the Star Wars, the continuation of the trilogy, the second trilogy was terrible. I thought they were all bad.
I didn't think they were all bad. Like I thought the Phantom Menace we watched for the new CGI, right? The CGI in that was spectacular at the time. Was the story great? No, but the CGI did captivate you. And then after that, did it get a little weak at times? Sure. But I still felt like it was good. I mean, was the acting on par? No. I mean, and now there's, rumors of Hayden Christensen coming back, but I won't talk about that.
Oh, God. Well, I was going to say, I mean, the acting in this movie was pretty
spectacular.
Good. It was pretty damn good. I mean, especially when you consider that, Finn and Rey, the two main characters, the two central characters that will be carried forward, have never been in anything of major consequence before. I don't know if that was I don't think it was their debut. I think they've been in other things before.
They've been in other things, but this was their biggest.
Yeah, and I mean they were really good. They were really convincing. Your supporting cast. I mean, you had, like you said, you had an Oscar-nominated actress who I don't even remember where the hell she was in the show.
She was Finn's boss, who told him to report to. She had the costume on.
Oh, okay. And then I remember the girl from Game of Thrones was the captain, the one that,
right.
So I mean, but I think everybody was, and I won't spoil it because I'm sure there's.
Have you ever been to a movie? Now, this is the kicker for me, and I went to the original Rocky. I went to a lot of them. Have you ever seen a movie where the minute they put up the logo, people started clapping? I can't remember another time that's happened.
No. And to be honest, like I saw it at around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve was the last show.
Right.
And there were like maybe 30 people in there. So,
right.
nobody was clapping, and
Mine they were, but I was there first night at midnight, so that's why.
But I worked at a movie theater for 10 years, Russ, and I've seen a lot of movies. People clapped at the end of Pearl Harbor. Seriously.
I know you have this thing in Pearl Harbor. Let's move on.
No. I mean,
you just now look. I'm not a big Ben Affleck fan either, but you hate Pearl Harbor. Like, it's clear.
Well, because it's such a disappointment. It was, it's a great subject for a movie, and then you make basically a Titanic, threesome romance between two people who can't act, and a beautiful girl who she doesn't need to act because she's beautiful. Anyway, let's get to hockey because we're going too much here. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, December 28th, 2015.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. That's it. That's all you got.
No plugs? No plugs?
Nope. That's it.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, Russ, the World Junior has started in Helsinki, Finland. Started on Boxing Day with a bunch of games, and I want to go through not individual games, but the way teams are playing right now. I figured that's the way to go about it. First, Team USA, at the height, they win over Canada 4-2 on Boxing Day. Get a couple late goals, tight game until late in the third period. And then today put over 40 shots on Linus Soderstrom.
Saves. It was over 40 shots. Like, if you actually counted the shots.
46. I think it was 46 shots on Islander draftee Linus Soderstrom, and they lose 1-0 on an Alex Nylander goal. Now, I know we were commenting to each other on Twitter and on Facebook during one of or a couple of the U.S.'s 8 power plays they didn't score on. And don't get me wrong, Soderstrom had a remarkable game.
I don't know. Did he have a remarkable game? Or did he just have a good game? I don't know. I think he was great at times, but I also think, like, there was a lot of easy saves. There weren't a lot of highlight saves. Actually, I can make you the argument that Ned Jelkovic maybe had better saves than he did, and his team. Jenna wants to just say hi,
Yeah.
And so I can make you that argument that Ned Jelkovic had better saves than he did.
Well, he made a great save late in the third period that kept it 1-0. But I mean, Soderstrom made the one save, the right pad save, and then I think it was on the 5-on-3, and then was down on the ice. And when a goaltender is down on the ice,
he was down on the ice. That was a great one.
The forward has no excuse. He's got to roof it and score the goal. Then he shot it right into his glove, but he made the save.
I liked Soderstrom in his draft year, and I think the only reason he fell, and I remember talking about him. And there were some people who didn't like him, other draftniks, and I think because they just saw that he was so slight of frame, like he had like that Matt Murray kind of skinniness, and now he doesn't, and he really looks good. And this is a big deal because if Sweden does get goaltending, they're right in there, man. They're a good team, but you can't go 0 for 8, and Ron Wilson can't wait until you're 0 for 7 on the power play to adjust. Like, you don't start adjusting on the 8th power play. The fact that he put Sonny Milano on the 2nd power play the whole time made no sense. To me, he's got the best hands on the team. If people wanted to see on Twitter, Shane Beloy argue with me. We argue on our show. But I think he's got the best hands on the team. And then when you're talking about Nick Schmaltz, who's a great passer, a really adept passer, finally got on the power play on the 8th one on the top power play. Like, that's stuff you have to question.
Well, I mean, does this go along with the anti-small player bias? Because, Milano's not a big guy. Bracco didn't make the team, and that was the thing that we mentioned is, like, when they go 0 for 8 in a power play. And I mean, you said it. I know that Jeff Merrick said it on his podcast, and I've thought it for a while, is the fact that, Bracco didn't make the team and they would be hurting, especially on special teams, because he's a very creative player, and they go 0 for 8 today. And really, I mean, did you see one really great chance that they had? They didn't seem to be able to get control of the puck.
I mean, I saw the one chance where he hugged the post on the right side. I mean, they had 20-something power play shots, and honestly, 4 or 5 of them were really good. That's about it. And a lot of times they were losing the puck. There was a lack of cohesiveness on the power play. At times on the last one, Matthews was trying to make things happen on his own.
Yeah.
Because I think he was frustrated that nothing else was happening.
And that was what happened last year. If you remember, like
Yes.
when they got eliminated, they started to be like individuals. It was Eichel, it was Larkin last year. They would try to do everything 1-on-5 and it wasn't working. And I thought I picked up on that, like you said, like Matthews did. And Matthews I thought had a great game against Canada. He had a goal and an assist. And I mean, honestly, I don't think even if he had a terrible tournament that it would affect his draft position. Yeah, but he's a man. I mean, he's a man.
But he didn't have a great game, and that's fine. Sometimes you don't have a great game every game. But like there were some things that I had talked about on previous broadcasts. Like, look, Zach Werenski is a terrific defenseman. He's not a great offensive defenseman, and I remember saying that, and he's showing that. With that said, McAvoy's young. Belpedio and Fortunato are not great offensive defensemen. They're decent puck movers with decent shots. Belpedio has maybe an above-average shot, but they're sort of lacking in that area. So that's something where it's hurting the team not having a spectacular offensive defenseman like a Shattenkirk.
They needed Hannafin to be given to them to give them a much better chance. I'm not writing them off. I think they have enough talent to.
Let's bring up something else. There was a guy on Twitter who was absolutely right by saying, hey, Connor Garland's sitting in the queue, and he's got 80 points in 33 games. But you know what his problem is? He's 5'8".
Mm-hmm. And he just got signed by the Arizona Coyotes a couple days ago.
But he's 5'8", so you can't – how many 5'8" guys can you have, Mike? Come on. And that's a joke. I'm saying it jokingly because I think we've gotten to the point where, especially in these tournaments, why do we have a fourth line? What did that fourth line do for Team USA when they were down a goal? Nothing. You'd rather have three other scorers, wouldn't you?
Well, and I was going to bring up a couple things. One, I'm not sure whether there's any risk of suspension, but Matthew Tkachuk on that cross-check late in the game I think it was.
I don't think so. I think that'll go as it was, but it was obviously a frustrating time for him. I'd say he's dropping a little bit in the rankings. I will say that. I think that's going to happen. I've seen a few more challenges in this game that I noticed before. Mm-hmm. So that's, and this is what happens. You go up against stiffer competition, a little more pressure.
Well, I mean, and like we mentioned on the World Junior preview that we did last week, this is a proving ground for certain players. One is Tkachuk. I think, right now he's not, I think there's a lot of talent there, but obviously
there's a ton. I mean, he made some very adept plays, but I'm just saying, if I'm going to now put him up against Laine and Puljujarvi, he is falling behind them. He is.
Well, and one of the players that I mentioned and what we've both talked about over the last couple months is Alex DeBrincat. And I mean, first, we know these guys are 17, 18, 19 years old. They're young. They make mistakes. But a 5-minute spearing penalty against Canada was not a good thing.
I think Konecny helped that along a little. I do.
I think there was a little embellishment there, obviously, but I mean, still, it's the actual act.
The act. Yeah.
And then today, this will just feed into the concerns of those NHL scouts who are concerned that he's not big enough or whatever.
What? So a 6-foot guy wouldn't have gotten bloodied up either. He would have.
Well, the funny thing was he fell.
Right.
The defenseman pushed him along the boards, and apparently the knee.
Got him with his knee, right?
Yeah, but now I've seen reports after the game that he was seen in a sling and that he has a shoulder injury. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll find out over the next few hours whether there's any concern with that. I know Bob McKenzie.
Now let's break this one down a little bit too, because when I hear on TV that that's a hockey play, that's like a borderline hockey play and a borderline dirty play. Right. It is. And we're seeing a lot of that in this World Juniors. I mean, the Swiss were headhunting.
Thank you.
Absolutely were headhunting against Sweden.
Perfect segue because the Swedes were the next team I wanted to talk about, and they win 1-0 today. Other than Soderstrom, who played great, and the one goal, which is Alex Nylander and Dmytro Timashov teaming up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fairly uneventful game for the Swedes. I mean, they got the victory. That's what they really needed. And they showed some toughness, I guess, their defense.
Are we finally over all these ridiculous comments too about Timashov? Oh, he's a pass-first guy. Oh, he's not that good of a skater. Oh, he's so much better now than he was in his draft year. I watched him in the Memorial Cup. He was fantastic. I was there. I don't understand what people are talking about.
Well, he had 71. He was second in the queue in assists.
I think this is a bias against the queue. I have to call it by Canadian, coverage, Canadian media. They must have a bias against the queue because otherwise it doesn't make sense. The kid always had this speed. He always had a great shot. Whether he decides to pass or not, he's still got a fantastic shot.
Well, that's the funny thing is I've heard people criticize the fact that Timashov was slow, and I'm like, he doesn't look slow out there. He doesn't look, he's shifty.
He's not the fastest, but he's not slow.
Right, he's shifty. He has good on ice vision. He's a good playmaker, and he has a good shot. I mean, he scored the 2 goals against the Swiss. But getting back to that game, because like I said, today's game was the goal, and that was and the goalie, and that was basically it. The Swiss, I don't know if they were headhunting. I know that,
they took out their 2 best players. You tell me what that's called.
Right. Well, I mean, now, okay, I've heard, and I have to try to separate myself from the Leaf fans out there who are, who are saying, "Oh my God, that's a head."
Well, I'm clearly not a Leaf fan, so I could talk about it.
It was predatory. I mean, I watched that replay 50 times, Russ. He hit him on the button on the shoulder, right on the tip of the right shoulder, and the concussion or the whatever, if there was one, was the whiplash, was him getting spun around like 360 because.
But was that a necessary hit?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a necessary hit at all. But the thing was, Nylander had scored a goal already. He picked up the puck. He turned at center ice at top speed, and the Swiss forward Eagly, I think his name was, hit him as he was coming out of the turn. And Nylander had his head up, but he didn't see this guy because he was coming from the blind side. So I mean, it was an unnecessary hit. But the indications are, I mean, there's more reports today. He has felt good the last 2 days. From what they're saying, they're going to hold him out for the entire preliminary round. They're going to hold him out.
In my mind, they're doing that.
But they're going to. I think they're going to bring him. If he continues to feel better, he'll be back for the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
and that'll be a big boost for Sweden because
he's going to have like 3 or 4 good days. Then he'll start skating, and if he doesn't have headaches, then he'll get back in.
Right. And the funny thing was, I mean, you looked at Sweden and you figured that they couldn't maybe, if Kempe and Nylander were both out, that they would be challenged. I mean, that was the team that I picked to win it all.
But they were challenged. I mean, they had 8 penalties.
Right. Well, yeah, and the funny thing was Kachuk.
All they had to do was score 2 goals on 8 power plays.
Kachuk talked about it in the second period. Obviously, the U.S. coaching staff had said, "Get on the Swedish defense. They're big. They're slow. We can get penalties and score." And didn't happen because the goalie played well. But that may be their Achilles heel. But it didn't show up. I mean, it didn't show up against the U.S. today, other than the penalties themselves. I mean, they were able to kill them. So, but honestly,
you're not going to be able to kill off 8 penalties every game.
As much as Kachuk may have hurt his draft stock so far,
he's hurt in a couple spots. I'm not talking about like a big.
I'm not talking hadn't fallen out of the top 10 or anything like that. But I'm saying there were some people who thought that Alex Nylander was maybe doubtful as a top 10 pick. So far, he doesn't. He's leading the tournament, Russ.
Yeah, he looks really good. I think top 10 sounds about right. When we start talking about more than that, then we'll see. Then we'll see. But right now, he does look really good. There's a lot of nice things to like about his game. But he's taller than William, right? So let's stop calling him his little brother. He's not little.
No, I think they're actually the same height. They're both
the same height. Okay.
Both 6 foot. But no, I mean, I always refer to him as his younger brother. I mean, But and obviously, if he continues to light up this tournament, how much of the drafting the Nylander brothers, bring them to Toronto, the next Sedins, blah blah blah, will you hear from now?
You'll hear quite a bit of it. There's no question. But then the same as you'll hear about Kachuk from London, like these narratives are going to pop up.
Yeah.
There's just no way they're not going to, you know. But let's talk about the Adrian Kempe. So he gets run into the boards. He knew what was happening. It wasn't like he, you know, didn't try and brace himself. And I forget who it was, whether it was Siegenthaler or whoever it was. I forgot.
It was another Swiss
player. That was just a flat-out dirty play. Like, that was just like, hey, I got a chance to crush Adrian Kempe. I'm going to do it.
And honestly, I don't know what the Swiss coach was thinking if that was a plan of attack, because they lost to Denmark, which is shocking. It's not Denmark with Ehlers on the roster. It's Denmark without him, and that's, you know, not exactly a strong squad. And the Swiss were supposed. I mean, there's a chance now that they could get relegated. You know, if they lose a couple, you know, the next game or two. I mean, that's a very distinct possibility. And that for that country, for that, you know, how they've really made some progress, that's a real big step back. So I think they're paying for some stupidity on the ice. Let's talk about Canada. They're playing Denmark now, and obviously I can't look at the scoreboard to see, but I'm sure they're probably up 4-0 by now. You know, they did not play great against the U.S. I thought Mason McDonald was average at best.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They've already Dave Lowry has already mixed up their offensive lines. He broke apart. I don't understand. And Ack was actually right when he talked during that World Junior preview that they were playing Quenneville on the Strome and Marner line, because and like I said, I think they put him on there to be the defensive guy to cover up for Strome and Marner, and that's stupid. If you have an offensive line with two guys like that, you put an offensive guy to help them out, and they didn't do that. Now you could speak to this part. Yeah.
You watch Marner way more than I do as far as in-season action. Mm-hmm. Why are they putting him up high on the power play? Is that where he normally plays, or is this something Team Canada has formulated?
I don't know. I mean, from what I remember, and I mean, for what I saw in the rookie tournament, and from what I've seen at times with London, he's played on the half boards.
Right. So why would they change that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, unless they don't think that they have. I mean, the thing is, I think they have enough guys who can play the point. You know,
right? I mean, I'm looking at him like he should be one of the key cogs.
Right.
Shouldn't one of the key cogs play where he's used to?
Yeah, you would think, unless they think there's somebody better who can play that position. But now today they've shifted all their forward lines again. They moved Virtanen up on the number one line. They broke
playing behind me. I'll watch it later.
Yeah, they broke up Strome and Marner. They put Strome with Virtanen. They put Marner down with Braden Point and Quenneville. So obviously there's some concern there from Lowry that maybe Marner is not good enough defensively, although he doesn't have that reputation in London.
No, I mean, look, is he great defensively? No. Does he kill you? No. I mean, I think there's too much nitpicking when it comes to this, but I think Strome, if people don't see him as sort of like an elite talent with some of the plays he's made, then they're never going to see it, right? Because they, you know, I kind of hear this mild Strome bashing, like, well, he's drafted so high, why isn't he in the NHL? And it's like, hey, he's got to get bigger and stronger. But all the tools are there. They're not going to rush him. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the only criticism I had of Marner watching that game was the fact that I thought he was overhandling the puck, and there was a couple of opportunities where he got the puck stolen from him because he was just holding on to it too long.
But what about the Strome factor? Do you feel like he's showing his skills and stuff? Because I certainly do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think Strome is their best center. I mean, he's got to get the most ice time. I mean, I think he's got the size. I still think there is a question, though, going back to the draft, about Strome and his agility and his speed. I mean, I don't think he is slow. I think he is probably like an average skater. And for him to be like that, I think he's going to have to be a lot stronger to be.
Right. Well, that's why I think they're building him up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but things will be different. I don't know whether they're playing the goalie from the Cube.
I don't know if things are different. Wait, hold on. I'm seeing. It looks like McDonald just left. Did he just give one up?
I'm looking at the scoreboard right now, and it's nothing.
Okay, so there's one that goes in here, but I guess there's in the crease. He must be in the crease then.
Yeah, McDonald is starting the second straight game. So, I mean, depending on what happens here, that Blackwood will be in goal for them the follow, in the game against
Denmark. They're up in the air. They're hugging each other. They definitely scored.
Wow.
1-0 Denmark.
Wow.
And here's the thing. I mean, we don't ever want to be totally critical of goalies and whatever, but I'm watching this play and I'm watching as I'm talking to you, and he clearly overcommits on the right side, and then on the left side, he leaves it pretty wide open for a shot. And if you remember me talking about one thing that he doesn't do, he's not fast post to post. He's a little bit lumbering that way.
But this is the one advantage for Team Canada in the sense that even if, and I don't think they're going to lose to Denmark, but even if they do lose to Denmark, they can say, okay, well, now Blackwood is back. Not to put too much pressure on him, but Blackwood is clearly our number one goaltender. He's back, so now let the tournament begin.
But all of Canada is biting their pillows now. Like, they're really,
well,
the fact that they lost to the U.S. and now they're down 1-0.
Well, based on what Ron Wilson said, and this is the funny thing, I was going to bring this up. Thank you for the segue again, Ross. Ron Wilson comes out on Saturday after the U.S. beats Canada and says that TSN has made the World Junior into a monster, and that Team Canada were holding their sticks so hard that the sawdust was coming out of them. Obviously, Ron doesn't realize that they use.
I know. It's like, if you want to go, the first hint is when your phrases are a little dated, is when you use the sawdust line, considering they're all made out of fiberglass now.
First of all, he looks like Ebenezer Scrooge on the U.S. bench with the glasses on and everything. But I don't hold fond memories of Ron Wilson from his tenure in Toronto. But he has had some success internationally. But and I'm not laying the blame for them losing to Sweden on Ron Wilson. I just thought that statement was rather idiot. And like it hasn't been a big deal in Canada before TSN got the coverage. And he used to work.
Ron Wilson should be more worried about why Jeremy Bracco is not there, because I think that's a little more evident than worrying about your opposition. As John Tortorella would say, don't worry about the other team, worry about your team. That's the one time we'll all agree with John Tortorella. It's about the only.
Now, just touching on a couple other teams here, and then I want to move on to some NHL stuff. I watched the first Finland game. Haven't had a chance to watch any of the one that they're playing right now, and they're actually losing to the Russians right now, which is a little surprising. But it's the Line A and Puljujarvi show.
Well, we said that. I felt they were going to be the best line.
Wow. And how weird is it, by the way, just as an aside, that there's a Sebastian Aho that played for Sweden that was injured, and now there's also a Sebastian Aho, a completely different guy playing for Finland.
It's creepy. But look, Rube Hintz is playing great too, and that's why I said I love that line. But again, a lot of people don't want to hear that. Like when I say, hey, I think that's the best line in the tournament, there's probably a lot of Canadians and Americans that don't want to hear that, but it's the truth.
But the funny thing is that the 17-year-olds are the central figures. I mean, I think they've been in on almost every goal that the Finns.
Yeah, but they're also 6'3" and 6'4", 200-something pounds apiece.
Sure, but the 19-year-olds, but Rantanen and Kapanen are.
Rantanen looks good. Let me tell you something. Rantanen bringing the puck up the ice like a Mack truck looks really good. It's hard to say anything bad about him.
Kapanen, I honestly haven't even noticed him.
Kapanen did make one really good pass play in that first game that I felt was a really good patient pass from the corner that didn't set up a scoring didn't set up a score, but set up a scoring chance.
Yeah.
So I felt that was good. I was watching a little of the Slovakia game. That Ranger draft pick, Adam Huska, who was a USHLer, looks pretty good. I mean, we haven't had Slovak goalies don't have a great history in the NHL. They have a history, but maybe he could be the next big Slovak goalie because he looked pretty good. He sound position. He doesn't have a great team in front of him, but it's a decent team. And also Christian Jaros on that team looks really good. Like I think he's a Senators pick, and that's a kid who really looks terrific for that team.
And Don Sweeney earned some brownie points from the Czech national team by allowing Pasternak to go back and play. He gets a goal today against Slovakia.
Yeah, he's getting hero status, which, again, totally justified because Hanifin would get the same hero status if Carolina would have lent him to the U.S. team, right? I mean, it's the same thing. But we will give Don Sweeney credit, too. in that with the U.S. game, because Brandon Carlo, who I always liked, and I told you I think is better than Zobril, who was picked in the first round, has looked terrific for the U.S. team. And so that's another good thing for the Bruins.
Okay, so let's move on to, there'll be more to talk about in the coming days because this tournament will roll forward.
We can talk about Columbus.
Well, I was gonna say we have Canada Sweden on New Year's Eve, so that'll be a very interesting game.
Yeah. That's days from now. Let's talk about. We should talk about Columbus.
Okay, we will talk about Columbus. I want to talk about the trade first of all.
Okay, let's talk about the minor trade.
Yeah, the minor trade that is sort of interesting. And the funny thing was, I was talking yesterday when the rumor on Saturday I was at the St. John's Marlies game in Toronto, and that was the day that Canada
tied it up. That
was the game that Kassian was supposed to report to the St. John's Ice Caps, which is the Montreal's affiliate, and we heard at the arena that Montreal had told him not to report.
Right.
Which let everybody believe there was a trade going on. And I was chatting via Twitter yesterday with our mutual friend Anthony Mangione, and I said to him, if there's a trade, and the name Scrivens came up, if there's a trade, there's going to have to be some salary retained by Edmonton because there's a salary imbalance of about $650,000, and they ended up retaining about $550,000. So it's a 1-for-1 Ben Scrivens, who was with Bakersfield in the AHL, for Zach Kassian. Not a major deal, but it happened after the trade freeze.
That's a win for Ben Scrivens. He gets the hell out of Bakersfield. That's a win.
Bakersfield to Montreal. That's a little bit of a trade.
That's a win, man. That's a big win.
Yeah, and now you have the Ivy League goaltending tandem, Cornell and Princeton with Kim and Condon. And
I really hope we get to see Condon in the Winter Classic. I hope they keep him on track for that.
Well, okay, and just analyzing the deal quickly.
Yeah.
Does this mean that Carey Price is more injured than we thought?
No, it just means they're like 1-10 without him. That's all.
Okay, because I mean, obviously, what's going to happen here is either Condon or Scrivens get sent down once Price comes back. I would think it would be probably Condon that gets sent down because
I would think so.
Yeah, and let him play. And they expected him to be the goalie. I mean, well, he made number 2. And I'll tell you, Zach Fucale did not play well on the weekend against the Marlies. He gave up a couple. He got pulled in the second game and lost the first game.
It happens. I mean, and he might not be ready, and that's fine. They're hedging their bets. That's all. But here's the thing. And I've seen erroneous reports on Twitter like, oh, Carey Price is done for the year. Like, people think he's done for the year. He hurt his knee stepping on a puck. He obviously sprained it. He didn't tear it. Didn't need surgery. Let's not overanalyze this and make it into something it's not. Even with him not in there, Montreal's kept their head above water playing horribly. So, it is what it is.
Well, I mean, they haven't I don't think there's any panic here on the part of Marc Bergevin because obviously he would have made a more impactful deal than this.
Yeah.
But, they're cratering right now. I mean, they've lost first place. I mean, they can get it back once Price comes back, but I think the whole thing here is they're not going to bring him back until he's 100%. They're not going to rush him back. Gallagher apparently is maybe a week away from coming back. I think he wants to come back for the Winter Classic.
He does.
Price is not coming back for the Winter Classic. They're saying he may wait until after the All-Star break, and that may be one of the reasons they bring in a guy who's got some experience like Scrivens. Yep. And Scrivens played well in Los Angeles in front of a very good defensive club, so he could be an improvement over Tokarski or even Condon.
Yeah, look, if Scrivens wins 2 or 3 games, it's worth the trade, right?
Yeah, but where I'm wondering is what Edmonton is thinking here because Kassian's a roll of the dice. He's an RFA at the end of the year. If he doesn't work out, they could not qualify him and let him go. Maybe they see something. He's a former first-round pick. He's played in the NHL. He's had his off-ice problems. He's supposedly straightened them out or is in the process of straightening them out. So there's some upside there.
Are they going to put him maybe with a player like RNH who they feel like gets pushed around a little bit, so he's got some protection? So
he's going to be in Bakersfield right now.
But at some point they're going to bring him up and give him a look.
Yeah, I would think if he was going to be on a line with in Edmonton, he would either be on a line with Nugent Hopkins or with McDavid because of the size. Because he's you mess with this guy and put Benoit Pouliot and Kassian on the same line and he won't get touched.
Right.
I mean, because Kassian will step on your Achilles like he did on Dave Bolin. But honestly, the thing I was looking at though is with this trade was the fact that you had a guy they couldn't have used Jared Tenorti, or they didn't want Jared Tenorti, or Montreal wouldn't give up Jared Tenorti in this deal.
I think Montreal wouldn't have given up Jared Tenorti. I think for all this talk about Tenorti, he's still a defenseman who's probably 24?
Not even. I think he's
23,
22, 23.
22, 23. Sometimes it does take till 25. And I think Montreal's like, hey, you know what? With that size, let's hold off. Because look at the mistake that Buffalo made with Tyler Myers. Can we all admit that was a mistake now? Myers has been playing great for Winnipeg.
Well, he saved the game for Winnipeg last night. If people haven't seen it, go to the 6-minute highlight package and see the save that he made with Hellebuyck down in the crease. I think it was like a minute and a half left to go in regulation. It should have been the tying goal for Pittsburgh, and Myers made an incredible block in the crease. But yeah, let's talk Columbus because
let's talk Columbus.
Yeah, I mean things are dreadful there. They
went up, they leveled off a little, and now it's all downhill, man.
Well, okay. First of all, I think this is a product again of Bobrovsky being hurt.
Sure.
I mean, McElhinney is not going to win. He's not going to lose you games, but he's not going to win you games. Bobrovsky has the possibility of winning you games because he's a good goaltender, but he gets hurt again. Now they're stuck playing McElhinney and the rookie, the Finnish rookie.
Yep.
And their defense has always been their Achilles heel. And they're not getting regular scoring out of guys like Johansson. I mean, he's up and he's down. I think
he's got 24 points. I mean, let's again not over-exaggerate the fact that the guy, he has 18 assists. I bet you if I look in the league, 18 assists is in the top 10.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying he's.
No, I know. I'm just making the point that this narrative that Tortorella started, is not working for him, because then after Johansson, he went and picked on Scott Hartnell and
picked on Saad.
And Scott Hartnell, last I looked, is leading that team in scoring, even though it's not a great team. He's got 14 goals. And then picked on Saad, and Saad's got 13 goals.
And Tortorella called out the veterans.
Right.
I mean, he called honestly, the thing is, I get that there are a lot of critics of John Tortorella. I get that some people think that this tone and this accusatory nature of his doesn't work. But Davidson and Kekalainen wouldn't have brought him in unless that's what they wanted, because they see a team here that they bring in Brandon Saad after they finished the season so strong last year after having injuries and subpar play, and thought, okay, Saad was the missing piece. Not that they were going to win the Stanley Cup, but that they were going to compete for a playoff spot. They were going to be in the playoff mix. Hey, now this team has 29 points.
Yeah. We all thought that they could, though.
Yeah.
We did. And this is a team that hasn't worked out on paper. But here's something else. Something that I feel is flying under the radar. Not the fact that we know they're not that good defensively, because after Murray and Savard is average, they really don't have much. But Jack Johnson, for this year, next year, through 2018, his final year, is making $5 million a year. He's a -16. He's got 8 points. I don't care if he's hitting everything that moves. This is a guy who I had high hopes for in his draft year that has gotten worse and worse and worse.
He's supposed to be a better offensive player than that. I mean, honestly, I don't really want to go there, but he is not having a good year. Could the whole thing, the money problem, the thing with his parents?
No, but that was more last year. I understand that he's sort of through that now, so I don't think that that's as legitimate as it once was. I mean, even if it is, there's a lot of people in the world that have problems, and you got to put it aside and play on the ice. His play on the ice is all I'm considering, and his play on the ice stinks. You know, and that's one of their higher paid defensemen, if not their highest paid defenseman. He probably is. He probably still makes more than Savard, or he's right there with him. And so just think about it. They've got money tied up with him and Savard. Murray's doing okay, and I think Murray's having an okay year. He should be doing a little better, but he's not yet. But that may be a product of the injury, so I'll give him some time. But, you know, again, roster construction, that defense is horrible.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if moving to the West here, moving to the Pacific, you've got two teams that are in the bottom three of the league, Anaheim and Edmonton. I
watched Anaheim last night. I'm going to tell you something that somebody put up on Twitter. I forget, one of their beat writers. I forget his name right this moment. But when they got a too many men on the ice penalty, he was just like, yeah, that's pretty much standard operating procedure around here. Now, they got a win against the Flyers team that really didn't play well for the last two periods of that game. Mm-hmm. But Bruce Boudreau is doing a horrible job of coaching that team. He is. And he's just basically putting players out there and hoping they could score on their own, because he's out of answers. Like, there's nothing he's doing that's affecting the game in a positive way, other than just letting his guys play.
I mean, this is the worst division in hockey, Russ. I mean, right now you've got, okay, LA is running away with the division. But right now, between 2nd and 7th, you have Arizona at 37, Vancouver at 37, San Jose at 36, Calgary at 36, Edmonton at 33, Anaheim at 32. You've got 6 teams within 5 points of each other, fighting over 2 playoff spots.
But this Anaheim thing is fool's gold, considering the players they have. And again, Murray went on that tangent and yelled at his veterans. Great. Always good to do. But if you're yelling at the veterans and saying that none of them got in good enough shape, then again, I blame the coach. And so something has to give there. So are they waiting until January 2nd? They might be. You might be right about that. But until then, they're at the bottom of the heap. And now, granted, they might have a chance in their division because it stinks. But what kind of realistic chance? I mean, John Gibson played well last night. He did. And I really liked what I saw. But I still didn't love what I saw out of Anaheim, even in a win.
No, and, you know, Getzlaf is still not scoring.
I mean, he got a point last night. I saw him, you know, yay.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, and you hate to equate monetary value with production, but
right.
You have to. When a guy is making over $8 million a year, you need more than one goal.
Yeah,
and he's not getting it.
And to be honest, the best play in that game came off of what I would call unfamiliarity with the league. Medvedev went to give a hip check to Corey Perry on the side boards, and he only caught him partial way, and Perry got the puck and he moved in and he scored. And you know, that's just him not knowing the league and the players, because even the announcers were like, yeah, you can't do that with Perry. He's so slippery. He's going to, you know, get out of that every time. And it's true. I mean, and that gave him, you know, a big goal. And so that goal came off of a play because that's, you know, a player who's not 100% in tune with the NHL yet. And Medvedev had a good game. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, Anaheim was fortunate. They were.
The hottest team in the league could be the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
I think it was their 6th win in a row last night over Columbus. Now, you know, it's Columbus and they're struggling, but, you know, win's a win.
Yeah, I think Barkov had a couple, right?
Yeah, and now they're a point ahead of Detroit and a point ahead of Montreal. I mean, you know, Russ, in late October, would we imagine that by late December, Montreal would be out of first place in the division? I mean, you know, we're not going to go on about Montreal right now because everything rides on them getting back Gallagher and getting.
We know the reasons, but it is good for Florida. But we talked about Florida as being a potential playoff team. It's not like this is a total shock.
No, but not first place in the division. I thought they were going to be a wild card team.
I know.
I thought that
it's early too. It's early, but this is a nice thing for Florida fans. I hope they all rally behind it and get attendance up there. You know, I'm watching this Bowflex commercial, and I kind of wonder if Jaromir Jagr is using the Bowflex, because that could be a secret to it, because I don't think anybody else uses it. You know anybody that owns a Bowflex?
No.
That doesn't hang laundry on it?
Can you use the Bowflex when you're getting your teeth put in? Because after he had teeth knocked out a couple games ago, I mean, he put a picture on Twitter. He looked like Dracula.
Yeah, he did. But the team's playing great. Again, Barkov, Trocheck, a lot to like there. I also feel Huberdeau has reignited his career. That's great. And, there's a lot of things to like about Florida. I mean, again, it's easy to just sort of look at that team and say, it's Florida, blah, blah, blah. There's always this narrative to sort of downgrade that. But Dale Talon's done a heck of a job.
Right.
And the other thing is, again, when people always want to throw around the buzzword too easily, and I feel like Eric Branson is playing like the right part that he's going to play. Forgetting about where he got drafted and what number he got drafted, he is a good physical defenseman. And at the end of the day, that's what they drafted him for. So I think even that's worked out really well for them. And I think it's all clicking at the right time. They've got a good goalie. Luongo, we're always talking about top 10 goalies, and Luongo's having a heck of a year.
He just needed to get out of Vancouver. I mean, there's something about him playing in Florida. I mean, he's this in his first incarnation down there. Now in his second, he's always been like the savior down there.
He's got a .924 save percentage, and nobody talks about Roberto Luongo ever.
Yep, I know. Now I'll tell you, I watched a lot of I was flipping around last night. I watched a lot of the Islanders and Leafs. Obviously, I don't know. The Islanders are right now in a playoff spot. They have 43 points. They're a point behind the Rangers. They're, compared to other teams, they have a lot of security because New Jersey's 4 points behind them, Pittsburgh 6 points behind them. So are the Flyers. So they, unless they completely collapse, I mean, we're not even halfway through the season, but if they have a really bad second half, they could fall out of it. But right now it looked like they're going to get one of those 3 top spots in the Metro.
Yeah.
But I was totally unimpressed, Russ.
Well, here's the thing.
They look, if you can put it off like they ate too much Christmas ham or something like that.
No, I saw your
listless.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't even know. Did Ryan Strome play in that game? I didn't notice.
He was playing on the top line with Opozo and Tavares, and he didn't do much.
And he hasn't done much all year. He's been a huge disappointment, right? So that's one thing. Tavares looks off his game right now too, right? There's no question. Opozo's their best player, and he's an impending UFA. That is the worst thing the Islanders have going for them is that. But it's good that they're getting mileage out of Okposo. Don't get me wrong. I heard on one of the shows today, they're again bringing up this notion about them practicing not in Brooklyn. Who cares? Seriously, this is not a deal breaker. The Rangers used to always, Emile Francis got tired of the fact that maybe his guys were going out and having too much fun when he wanted them to practice at the Garden, so they'd get a hotel and be there the day before. There's ways around it. Like I'm not going to blame where they practice as to that's why they're not doing well at home. I'm not going to do it. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah, and I heard one of the Toronto reporters who was covering the game this morning report that all the players are still living on Long Island. They're not living in Brooklyn. That
that's fine. I mean,
they're taking the train to the city. I mean, who cares? I mean,
who cares? It's an easy commute. It's a simple commute.
Yeah, I mean,
we have 12 hours to get to a game each day, sometimes more, and it takes an hour to get there.
I just think the fact that like Anders Lee is not having a good season after he gets signed to a long-term contract. I don't know what Brock Nelson's production is right now, but he didn't really impress me that much. And
Nelson's done okay, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking specifically last night, and it seemed that they were the line that was getting the most ice time last night was Grabowski and Kuhlman against their old team, which was a little bizarre. But they just didn't really impress me. I know I haven't heard the extent of the injury, but I saw that David Krejci was injured in the Bruins game last night. And depending on the severity of it, we've talked about Krejci and how important he is to the Bruins, and I don't know how they can last, whether if he's out long term. If that is a serious injury, I think the Bruins are in trouble, Russ.
Oh, they're in trouble. He's been one of the better players in the league. Nelson's got 12 goals. I have no problem with Brock Nelson. I mean, to me, he's not supposed to be one of their 3 or 4 best players. He's more like one of their 5 or 6, in the line of the other guys after the other guys we mentioned. But David Krejci has been everything in my fantasy team too, who's in like 18th or 19th place for a team that I'm literally just trying to get a good pick for next year. But Krejci has been like an amazing surprise. Not that he's never been able to put it together, but he's never been able to stay healthy. And this year I was thinking, wow, he's actually staying healthy. But part of the reason I picked the Bruins to not do well is because Krejci always gets hurt. And this team, you have to admit the one thing. They're getting some production out of other guys. Hayes is giving them some, Spooner. They're getting production for some other areas. But this team is all falling offensively on Krejci and Bergeron.
And their power play.
And their power play.
And Marchand. Marchand is having
Marchand too. He's having a really nice year. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, there and Tuukka Rask, after a slow start, has played pretty well.
He's played great.
Yeah. So and they got back Seidenberg, and that seemed to solidify their blue line. I mean, they're in the same position as the Islanders with Opozo when you come to the fact that Louis Eriksson is, and I know he scored some goals for them. He's been effective for them. He's been part of the resurgence of the Bruins, but he's a UFA like Opozo is a UFA. And these teams that are in the playoff mix, it's going to be very interesting how they approach the deadline with guys who are going to walk away from nothing other than getting cap space.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because he was part of the Seguin deal, and people are going to always look at that and saying, now Eriksson's gone. What the heck do we have from that deal? I mean, that's going to be fair in a couple of years. But
you have Jimmy Hayes.
Yeah.
Uses for Riley Smith, so yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have to deal with that. There's no question. So right now, David Krejci is listed as week to week.
Yeah.
So and he's in a sling. So clearly it's a shoulder, right?
Yeah.
This is bad.
Which means optimistically it's probably after the All-Star break. And that's 2 to 3 weeks. If it's a separation of the shoulder, then you're talking about a month to 6 weeks, and that's your number one center. Now,
Corey Krug did not practice today either.
Yeah, and now all the pressure offensively is on Bergeron. Bergeron can't be that checking guy, that number 2 guy. He's gonna have to pick up the slack offensively, and that could hurt them. And then, you have a tight race in the East right now. You thought the race in the Pacific was tight, but in the East, you have Detroit, Montreal, and the Islanders with 43 points. They're all second and third place in their various divisions. Boston and Ottawa are 42, and then Tampa and New Jersey are 39. So there's not a lot of gap there. I mean, honestly, the thing that surprises me, Russ, is it's so tight. I mean, we're talking halfway through the season, and from 28th or 29th in terms of the Anaheim, going up to 16th.
Here's an amazing thing. I'm going to read you now the new updated line combinations for the Bruins, okay?
Yep, 7 points.
So you got Marchand, Bergeron, and Brett Connolly. Now, Connolly, it's amazing because I thought it was a good pickup by the Bruins. He's making just over $1 million, and he's now playing top line for the Boston Bruins. If you would have told me that a year ago where he was buried in Tampa, or is it 2 years ago now, I would have been like, I don't know if he's going to, so he's on the top line. You got Bolesky, Spooner, and Louis Eriksson on the second line. It's decent.
Yeah.
It's decent, but now everybody's moved up. Like Spooner's moved up. Spooner is a second line center now. He might be overmatched. He might be, and that could be a problem. Their third line. Now, this is where we start getting tricky. Frank Vetrano, Landon Ferraro, Jimmy Hayes. That's where I think they're going to get hurt.
That's an AHL line. At least last year it was.
Yeah, that's where I think they're going to really get hurt. Fourth line's fourth line, right? Ronaldo, Talbot, they're used to playing each other. I'm never going to kill those guys. They're good energy guys. But that third line is really where it's going to hurt now, I think. Well,
it's funny that you said Connolly making $1 million and is on the first line. How about a guy like Lee Stempniak as a PTO ad by the New Jersey Devils, and he's on their number 1 line, and he's playing good.
Well, I mean, same thing. Yeah, it's just, but Stempniak at least had more of a track record for that, where Connolly was a high draft pick who had a lot of promise, who had shoulder injuries, and now has sort of worked himself in by luck and good play, but not great play. Like, hey, he's just the guy on that line. Like, so I still think the Bruins are doing it with Mirrors and Tuukka Rask. I do.
Well, can I say that
Canada just scored. It's 2-1.
Canada did? Okay. Can I say that the team that we talk about a lot on this webcast when Ekka's around, the Nashville Predators, are, if you look at things right now, they're in trouble.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
They're because right now Dallas is running away with the Central. St. Louis has got 48 points. They're playing very well. They've survived the early part of the season with all those injuries. Now they're getting their players back. Chicago survived the loss of Keith, and they're, I think, firmly in place with 44 points in the Central. Minnesota at 42, Nashville at 40. Now, maybe an outside chance, these teams in the Pacific, they can. They're only 4 points behind Nashville, but I thought Nashville was going to, make more progress in this. They were going to be in the top 3 based on the fact that they have one of the best. They have, I think, the best goaltender in the division. They have the best defense in the division. Again, it's goal scoring. It's awful.
Awful. I mean, 92 is not like Anaheim bad, but like Edmonton is more, Colorado is more, Calgary is more. I mean, they have the same amount of goals as Minnesota, but Minnesota has better defense. Believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just the way it's sort of shaken out. Their differential is actually a +9, where Nashville's a +3. Nashville doesn't have goal scoring. They still don't have goal scoring. But again, this is poor roster construction. I mean, David Poile gets a lot of passes because of Shea Weber and Pekka Rinne. He really does.
Yeah, and I think they clearly need a number 1 center, but that's easier said than done. And he has come out and said he is not trading any of the top defensemen. He's not trading Jones. He's not trading Weber. He's not trading Yossi. Now, that may mean he would be willing to trade Ryan Ellis, but I don't think he's going to get, he may get a rental of Eric Stahl or a rental of somebody else for that. But honestly, I think if they're going to get a player that they can hold on to for a couple of years that could fill an first or second line center adequately, they're either going to have to give up their first round pick in a deal, or they're going to have to give up Kevin Fiala. And if you look at Fiala's stats in the American Hockey League, he's not lighting it up. He's only got 14 points in 26 games. So, and you would think that with their offensive challenges that he would be up, or at least they would have given him an opportunity, but either they don't think he's ready, or can you say somebody at 19 is a bust? I don't think you can.
No. I mean, look, he's just getting used to North American play. It's only his second season playing on North American ice. I think he'll be fine. The thing is, like Ryan Ellis, he's probably going to get 30 to 35 points this year. He'll beat last year's number. So you could definitely get something for Ryan Ellis, and he's only a $2.5 million cap hit. So if you're adding him to a team that just sort of needs that extra guy, he's perfect. So I think you'll get something, but you're not going to get him out of scoring trouble. This is not going to get the Nashville Predators out of scoring trouble. And that's their biggest thing. It's like every year, every time they draft somebody, they're always have this eye on having that two-way player. And where are they going to get a great offensive player?
This is the thing that hasn't worked a couple times in their recent past. If you remember the last year that Suter was there, they went out and they added, I think that was the year that they added the second Kostitsyn. They brought back Radulov from the KHL. They made a run at it and it didn't work. I think they lost in the second round that year, even in the first round. I don't remember specifically. But then last year they add Franzen and Santorelli close to the deadline because they were players that they knew from in the past, figured that they would be able to acclimate themselves with the team quicker. And those players played terribly, and the team did not succeed in the first round against Chicago. This year, they're going to go down the same road. They're one of the few teams that got the cap room. They're going to wait until just before the deadline, to get these guys, because it'll cost them the least in terms of money spent. But you're going to have the difficulty if they add an Eric Stahl, if they add a couple other players, you're going to have the difficulty acclimating those players to the current group, and you don't know whether it's going to work.
Every time they've tried to make pickups, every time.
Yep. Yeah. And one thing I'll say to end the show here, and I keep coming back.
Don't end it yet.
Go ahead.
One of the biggest failures right now for the Nashville Predators is that Mike Ribeiro deal. because at 35 for this year and for next year, he's making $3.5 million. He's got 21 points in 35 games. I mean, they thought he would be the answer to their offensive woes, and he's like 5th on the team in scoring, but that's not saying much.
No, he's a stopgap.
Yeah,
he's a veteran stopgap. He's a power play specialist.
He's do more in the offseason. They didn't do enough.
No, and that's the thing I don't understand. It's like, I mean, you can they have that wealth of defensemen. Not to say that you should trade a Weber, although I've been an advocate of that for a couple of years because.
But you know what they are? They're really like the New York Mets of the National Hockey League, because like the Mets have the pitching and they don't want to give it up. They did make it to the World Series. Now Nashville hasn't done that even, but they've got all the defensemen, and they're like, well, defense is number 1 in the league, which it is. Right. But you have to divest of some of that. You do.
And Ryan Ellis is the Zach Wheeler of the Nashville Predators. But the point I'm looking at the standings, and we will see this evolve as the season goes on, past the All-Star break, closer to the trade deadline, and there'll be some separation, but not a lot. Teams that are contending for playoff spots, they have UFAs. They may not want to give them up because they may not want to cause their team to have a hole that they can't fill, and that would take them out of the race. But Russ, right now you look at the standings, and there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that Columbus is one, Toronto is another, that will be sellers. And there's not many other teams, maybe Buffalo, out there in terms of sellers. It's going to, for the teams that are sellers, it's going to be a market that they can get overpaid on average players.
Here's the thing, too. Like Pontus Aberg, probably overhyped. He's got 11 points in 29 games. He had a good year last year, 34 points in the A. He's 23, did I just say? He's not ready.
Yeah.
That's 22. That's not great because, again, that's a recent pick. Fiala, I'll give time on. I think Fiala is fine. But they're not getting much. Hamanev looks pretty good in this tournament. He does. Hamanev could be a really good talent down the road. But if they lose Vesey, this team starts going the other way.
And I am of the opinion, and I know I could be wrong, and I know Eck is saying that, he's heard things. I don't think we're going to know about Vesey until
playoff time.
Right, until the summer.
No, you might know before then, because if they say to Vesey, hey, come on our playoff roster, and he doesn't come, then that's an indicator.
Yeah, then he's if he doesn't sign with them almost immediately after Harvard season, after their season ends, then if it goes to the summer and he's like, I'm thinking this or that, he's gone.
Right.
But yeah, it'll come to a head in March and early April, depending. I don't know when the Frozen Four is. But
yeah, Tom Novak may be like him and Fiala may be their hopes, but it's not enough offense in their system. And Vesey is that guy who they actually could plug in and they don't play for him. And so this is a big dilemma. I know Eck would say we're over making too much out of it, but I don't think we are.
Or Vesey is an asset that you can move, because if you are not 100% sure that you can sign him,
then you better get something.
Right, exactly. Then he's an asset that you can move him now rather than at the draft when you get a second round pick. Move him now to get something that can help you.
Some roster player that you could use for years.
Right, exactly. Now, and finally, I'm just saying this, and another guy like that is Jankowski in Calgary. If they can't, I thought they were going to be second in that division. I don't think they have a chance to catch the Kings unless the Kings run into injuries. But if they can't sign Jankowski, there is a piece that they can move without affecting their team right now, that they can add something. I don't know if they want to move Yuri Hudler. He's another one of those UFA guys who, would affect the team if they moved him before the deadline. You create a hole that's sort of counterproductive. But I mean, right now, look at here are the maybe 4 or 5 teams that could be sellers: Carolina, Winnipeg. Who shocks me that Winnipeg is as far down in the standings as they are, but if they win a couple games, they're right back in the thick of things. Buffalo, Toronto, maybe Edmonton, although I don't see Edmonton selling anybody that people would, that others would want. and Columbus. I don't think Anaheim's going to sell anything because, who's going to want an $8 million Ryan Getzlaf the way he's playing?
I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere either.
No,
but you're
right. No, I don't think so. I'm just saying, if they wanted to trade him, who would take him?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, it's funny with the Jankowski situation. I'm reading quotes, and it's like, they say everything that every teams would expect to say. Yeah, we'll get him signed. We'll get him signed. And now he's having the best year of his career, and he's not signed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if I'm Calgary, I might have to move him.
Yeah, I mean, the organizations. It's funny. One with this, you saw Montreal, Edmonton retain salary in the deal, the Scrivens-Kassian deal. That may be meaningless, but if you look at it, like right now, Montreal's got like $1 million in cap space.
Right.
When it gets closer to the deadline, and Mark Bergevin wants to, make a move that can, affect their team positively going toward the playoffs, he's going to have to trade a player off of his roster. It's going to have to be money in, money out. There are not many teams out there that have the advantage of having cap room, even though it may not fit into their budget, to add players. New Jersey is one, Nashville's another, and there's like maybe one or two teams that would take salary back in deals. One of them is Toronto with the $6 million in cap space. So I think that's going to be a very big problem for some teams and a very big advantage for other teams closer to the deadline. If you have money that you're willing to take on, you will get paid for it. So, okay, good show, Russ. We'll have Eck back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.